Let me tell you something that is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. That feeling at the back of your throat right now, that thick, stubborn coating that no amount of water seems to wash away, that constant urge to clear your throat that you have been doing so automatically, you barely even notice it anymore. Your doctor has probably told you it is nothing serious. Drink more water, take an antihistamine, get some rest, and you went home, and nothing changed. Here is what nobody told you. That mucus is not a nuisance. It is a distress signal. And when a distress signal gets ignored for months or years, the problem underneath it does not stay quiet. It grows, it compounds, and by the time most people finally get a real answer, they have been living unnecessarily with a manageable condition for far longer than they ever should have.
I've been in medicine for over 6 decades. My name is Dr. Michael Ellis, and I am 85 years old. I have reviewed thousands of patient cases involving persistent throat mucus in adults over 55, and what I can tell you with complete confidence is this. The overwhelming majority of people living with this symptom have never been given an accurate explanation for why it is happening. Not because the answers do not exist, but because a 15-minute doctor's appointment is simply not built to find them. Today, I am going to change that for you personally. I am going to walk you through the 6 root causes of persistent throat mucus that research identifies as most common in adults over 55. Not the surface-level explanations, the actual underlying mechanisms your body is using to communicate with you right now. And I am going to tell you something that most content on this topic completely avoids. 3 of these causes are frequently active in the same person at the same time. And when they stack on top of each other, the symptom becomes dramatically worse and dramatically more resistant to simple remedies. Before we go further, I want to ask you one question. When is your throat mucus at its absolute worst? First thing in the morning before you have eaten or drunk anything? Or does it build throughout the day and peak in the afternoon or evening? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because the timing of your worst symptoms is one of the clearest windows into which of these 6 causes is most dominant in your body. I read every comment personally, and your answer genuinely matters here. Now let us get into the biology first, because without this foundation, nothing else I say today will fully land. What your body is actually doing. Your body produces mucus every single hour of every single day, and that is not a problem. That is survival biology. Mucus is the protective barrier lining your airways, your throat, your sinuses, and your digestive tract. It traps pathogens before they can penetrate deeper tissue. It keeps delicate membranes from drying out and cracking. Without adequate mucus, you would be extraordinarily vulnerable to every airborne bacteria and virus you encounter. The problem is never the mucus itself. The problem is what happens to the production and clearance of that mucus as the body ages. Inside your airways, there are millions of microscopic structures called cilia, hair-like projections that beat rhythmically in coordinated waves, sweeping mucus upward and outward continuously so it never accumulates. In a healthy younger adult, this system is so efficient that mucus is produced and cleared almost faster than it can build up. But here is what the research confirms clearly. After the age of 55, ciliary function declines measurably. The beat frequency slows. The coordination weakens. Mucus that would have been swept clear in under a minute at age 35 can sit and pool for hours at age 65. And any factor that pushes your body toward increased mucus production will have a dramatically amplified and prolonged effect in an older body compared to a younger one. That is the foundation. Now here are the 6 causes, and pay close attention to causes 2, 4, and 6, because those are the 3 that research shows most commonly operate together. Cause 1. Acid reaching your throat while you sleep. Most people associate acid reflux with heartburn, that burning sensation in the chest after a heavy meal. But there is a form of reflux that produces no chest burning whatsoever, no indigestion, no obvious stomach discomfort, just a throat that feels coated and irritated from the moment you wake up every single morning. It is called laryngopharyngeal reflux, and it works like this. The muscular valve between your esophagus and your stomach gradually loses its tone with age. When it fails to close completely during sleep, stomach acid travels silently upward, past the esophagus, and directly into the throat and voice box. The tissues of your throat have no acid-resistant lining.
The moment acid touches them, your body launches an immediate protective response, flooding the area with thick mucus to coat and shield the irritated tissue. This happens while you are asleep. You feel nothing during the night, but you wake up every morning to a throat that feels like something has been sitting in it for hours, because something has. Clinical ENT research shows that nearly half of patients with this condition report zero heartburn symptoms, just chronic morning throat clearing, a voice that sounds rough until mid-morning, and mucus that begins accumulating before they have taken their first sip of water. If your throat is significantly worse in the morning than at any other time of day, this cause deserves serious attention. Cause 2. Invisible chronic sinus inflammation. Here is the version of sinus problems that never gets diagnosed, because it never looks the way people expect it to. There is no throbbing headache, no completely blocked nose, no dramatic facial pressure, just sinuses that are running at a low level of chronic inflammation, quietly producing slightly more mucus than normal, and draining that excess mucus steadily and silently down the back of your throat, every hour of every day. What makes this particularly insidious is that most people reach for antihistamines and find temporary and incomplete relief. Here is why. Antihistamines reduce histamine-driven mucus production, but they do nothing for the underlying inflammatory state of the sinus tissue itself. And they thicken whatever mucus remains, making it stickier, harder to move, and more uncomfortable than the original problem. A 2024 clinical study found the average age of patients presenting with chronic low-grade post-nasal drip is exactly 55. That is not a coincidence. That is an aging immune system becoming less efficient at resolving inflammation quickly. The most research-supported intervention is consistent nasal irrigation with warm saline solution. Not occasional use, daily use. A 2025 review in the journal Medicina confirmed that high-volume saline rinsing is one of the most effective and evidence-backed strategies available for this condition, specifically because it physically removes inflammatory mucus, reduces tissue swelling, and directly supports the aging ciliary clearance system we discussed earlier. 2 weeks of daily consistent use is the minimum trial period before you can accurately assess whether it is working. 1 or 2 uses tells you nothing. If you are still with me, type the number 2 in the comments. It helps me see who is following along and getting real value from this. Cause 3. A medication you have been taking for years. This is the cause that generates the most surprise when I raise it with patients. Because the idea that a medication you have been faithfully taking for years could be causing or dramatically worsening a daily symptom is something most people never consider. There is a class of blood pressure medications called ACE inhibitors, angiotensin-converting enzyme inhibitors. They are among the most commonly prescribed medications in the world. They are effective, they are generally well tolerated, but they carry a class-wide side effect that the research documents with remarkable consistency. ACE inhibitors cause a substance called bradykinin to accumulate in the body. In a significant proportion of users, between 5 and 20% depending on the study, that accumulation triggers persistent irritation in the throat and an ongoing, irresistible urge to clear it. Not an allergy, not an unusual reaction, simply the pharmacological mechanism of the drug interacting with throat tissue that is particularly sensitive to it. The detail that causes this connection to be missed constantly is timing. This side effect often develops weeks or months after starting the medication. So if you began a blood pressure pill 10 months ago and your throat started bothering you 7 months ago, the thought that those two events are connected may never have crossed your mind. But that delayed onset is precisely the pattern the medical literature describes. A study of over 27,000 patients found that adults over 65 had a 53% higher likelihood of developing this throat side effect compared to younger patients. It is specifically an older adult phenomenon. If you take blood pressure medication and have never confirmed whether it belongs to the ACE inhibitor class, ask your pharmacist today. It takes under 1 minute. And if it does, alternative medications called ARBs control blood pressure equally well without this specific mechanism. That conversation with your prescribing doctor is worth having this week. Cause 4. Your gut is sending inflammatory signals to your airways. Of all 6 causes, this is the one that surprises people the most, because it means the origin of your throat problem may have nothing to do with your throat at all. Your gut and your respiratory system are connected through shared immune and nervous system pathways. The trillions of bacteria living in your intestines, collectively called the gut microbiome, play a direct regulatory role in how reactive and how inflamed your upper airways are at any given time. When the microbiome becomes imbalanced, a state called dysbiosis, it activates immune responses that travel through these shared pathways and promote mucus overproduction in the airways. Research published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine has confirmed this gut-lung axis connection directly. Animal studies have gone further, demonstrating that transplanting gut microbiome samples from patients with chronic airway disease into healthy subjects caused measurable increases in airway mucus production in the recipients. What disrupts the microbiome in older adults? Repeated antibiotic courses over the years, a diet low in fiber and fermented foods, chronically elevated stress hormones, high sugar intake. These are not exotic factors. They describe the daily biochemical reality of a very large number of people in this age group. A throat lozenge will never fix a gut airway axis problem, but specific, consistent dietary choices can begin to shift the microbiome in a direction that reduces that inflammatory signaling over time. I will cover exactly what those choices are in the action plan. Type the word root in the comments if this cause surprised you. Because the root of this problem being in your gut rather than your throat is exactly the kind of insight most people have never been given. Cause 5. Mouth breathing during sleep. This cause gets overlooked almost universally, and its impact is underestimated dramatically. When you breathe through your mouth during sleep rather than your nose, the air entering your throat bypasses all of the natural humidification and filtration that nasal breathing provides. Dry, unfiltered air hitting your throat tissues through the night causes them to become irritated, dehydrated, and inflamed. Your body responds the only way it knows how. It produces protective mucus to compensate for the dryness and shield the irritated lining. You wake up with a coated, congested throat and assume you are getting sick or that allergies are flaring. But what actually happened is 6 to 8 hours of your own breathing pattern working against the very tissues it should have been protecting. Mouth breathing during sleep becomes significantly more common after 60 for several reasons. Nasal congestion from the chronic low-grade sinus inflammation we discussed in cause 2. Reduced muscle tone in the soft tissues of the throat and mouth. And changes in sleep position that occur as mobility and comfort shift with age. A simple initial intervention is sleeping with a humidifier in your bedroom set between 40 and 50% humidity. This reduces the drying effect on throat tissues significantly, even if some mouth breathing continues. Nasal strips worn across the bridge of the nose during sleep can also promote nasal airflow and reduce mouth breathing passively, without any medication involved. Cause 6. Chronic mild dehydration. Running below your awareness. Here is the cause most people dismiss as too obvious to take seriously. And that dismissal is precisely why it continues to silently worsen their symptoms every single day. Your mucus is composed primarily of water. Its consistency, whether thin and fluid or thick and sticky and difficult to clear, is directly determined by how hydrated your surrounding tissue is. Thin mucus clears easily through the ciliary system even when that system has slowed with age. Thick, dehydrated mucus does not clear. It pools. It coats. It sits exactly where you keep feeling it. Now here is the aging-specific detail that changes everything about how you approach this. Research has clearly established that the thirst mechanism becomes significantly less reliable after 60. Younger adults feel thirst as a reliable early warning system, prompting them to drink well before meaningful dehydration sets in. In older adults, that early warning system is blunted. You can be dehydrated enough to meaningfully affect your mucus consistency and your daily comfort without feeling particularly thirsty at all. This means that if you are waiting for thirst to tell you to drink, you are consistently operating in a state of mild dehydration. And that mild dehydrated state, maintained day after day, keeps your mucus persistently thick and sticky, amplifying the effect of every other cause on this list simultaneously. When to see your doctor immediately. Before the action plan, I need to say this clearly. Most persistent throat mucus in older adults is exactly what we have discussed today: manageable and addressable. But see your doctor promptly if you notice any of the following: mucus that is consistently tinged with blood even in a small amount, difficulty swallowing that is gradually getting worse over weeks, unexplained weight loss alongside your throat symptoms, a lump or swelling in your neck that was not there before, a significant voice change that is not improving over 2 weeks. These signs require professional evaluation. Do not manage around them. Your complete action plan. Begin tonight by stopping all food and drink except water at least 3 hours before bed. This single change directly reduces the nighttime acid migration that drives cause 1. Place a firm wedge under your mattress to elevate the head of your bed by several centimeters. Gravity working in your favor during sleep costs nothing and requires no effort. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, drink 2 full glasses of warm water. This rehydrates your throat tissue after overnight dryness and begins thinning accumulated mucus immediately. Purchase a nasal rinsing device from your pharmacy this week. Use it every morning with warm, boiled, and cooled water and a small pinch of plain salt. Commit to 30 consecutive days before you evaluate the result. Consistency produces the cumulative benefit. Occasional use produces almost none. Schedule a specific appointment with your doctor to review your complete medication list in the context of your throat symptoms. Bring a written timeline. When did the mucus start? When did you last change or start any medication? That written timeline is the most useful thing you can bring to that appointment. Add 1 serving of a fermented food daily beginning this week. Plain yogurt with live active cultures, kefir, kimchi, naturally fermented sauerkraut. Small, consistent daily additions to your diet begin shifting your gut microbiome in a direction that reduces the inflammatory signaling driving cause 4. This is a 30 to 60-day strategy, not an overnight fix, but it is one of the most meaningful, long-term changes you can make. Place a humidifier in your bedroom and set it between 40 and 50% humidity tonight. Set 4 hydration reminders on your phone spaced throughout the day. Not when you feel thirsty, on a schedule. This is the single most effective way to override the blunted thirst mechanism that chronic mild dehydration depends on. That thickness at the back of your throat has a reason. 6 possible reasons, in fact, and most people living with this problem have never had a single one of them explained accurately or completely. Acid reaching your throat silently during sleep. Invisible chronic sinus inflammation draining constantly. A blood pressure medication building up a throat-irritating compound for months before anyone connected it. Your gut microbiome sending inflammatory signals your airways are responding to. Mouth breathing through the night, drying and irritating tissue that should have been protected. And chronic mild dehydration, thickening every drop of mucus in your body, below the level your thirst can even detect. None of these require you to simply accept this as your life now. Each one has a specific, evidence-grounded, practical response. If anyone has ever told you this is just what getting older feels like, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not just aging. You are dealing with identifiable, specific, addressable physiology. And you have deserved an accurate explanation far sooner than today. Make sure you are subscribed because next week I am releasing a video on the single most overlooked driver of chronic inflammation in adults over 60, a pattern that connects directly to what we discussed today and that most people are completely unaware of until the damage has already accumulated for years. Leave a comment below. Which of these 6 causes do you think has been affecting you? How long have you been dealing with this? I read every single comment personally. Your experience in this community matters, and it shapes every video I make. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.